Welcome, everyone, to Ladder Daily Digest. We honor creators, and today we have with us Mark Stoddard, who I'll just say is an entrepreneur, inventor, musician, and military man. Thanks, Mark, for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
And thank you for your service, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome there too. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Yeah, we appreciate you. We appreciate all of our listeners as well. And so, if you don't mind, Gene, I just want to remind people, we have these incredible guests on here and these shows that sometimes you don't get to watch them right away, but you watch them later, and people are loving the shows that we're doing. Sometimes we forget to hit the like button. And that's how we measure our success, is how many people not necessarily viewed it, but how many people liked what they saw. So if you wouldn't mind, if you're watching this, please hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed to Ladder Daily Digest, come on, what's keeping you? Is we got some good stuff. And we're so damn cool that you've got to watch us. And we've got cool guests on, like Mark. And we appreciate you being here, Mark.
Yeah, good to be here.
So, Mark, let's get to know Mark a little bit. So tell us about your upbringing and hit the high points and see what.
I will do that. So I'm a product of the BYU Rabbit Farm. I was born in Provo. My family moved to Southern California in 1967 when my dad got a job at Philco Ford down in Costa Mesa, California. A friend of his, and whom I just recently thanked, he's now 92, got him a job as an electrical engineer up in Goleta, California. So in 1970, Thanksgiving weekend, we moved to Goleta, California, where my dad then began a career at, it was actually called Hughes Aircraft Company then, or Santa Barbara Research is what they called it. So my dad was a return missionary. My mother was a convert. They were married in 1962. And my mother was a very authoritarian type A, very strong personality. She had some emotional issues. I won't go into those, but my dad was just brilliant, just a calm, brilliant mind, electrical engineer, loved all his kids, and he balanced our home out. I was baptized at 8 in Santa Barbara. And then I think partially due to how intense my mother was and how I felt about the church, I was inactive in the church from age 14 to age 19 in high school.
Was your mom strict then and it sort of drove you away from doing everything? You didn't want to obey anything. You wanted to just do your own thing?
Yes, partially. And she was also just very intense. So she would get upset at us very easily. I mean, she was loving, and I love my mother, but she was very intense at times. And I had gotten in trouble with the law very, very early. And so they sent me off to my dad's high school in Portland, Oregon. So I attended my first semester of high school at what's called Benson Polytechnic in Portland, Oregon. And
did you live with grandparents then or something?
I lived with my uncle initially, but I made 8 kids in his house, and I was traveling about 30 minutes one way on the bus because he lived on the southwest side of Portland and the high school was on the northeast side of Portland. And so what happened was my grandmother lived on the northeast side, and her home was literally within walking distance of the high school. So eventually I convinced, it didn't take long, 2-3 weeks. I said, hey, why don't I stay with grandma? That would be better here. And so that's what I did. And, for me, I wasn't able to get away. I was still inactive in the church. I mean, the first day of school, I'm walking to school and, I meet this kid and his name was John. And I'm like, dude, you got any, man? You holding? Yeah, man. All right. So first day of school, I'm walking in stoned, and then just didn't, at that point, I didn't do too well being away from home. So I ended up coming back to Goleta, California, still not attending church. The story there is I did tell my mother. I just looked at her and I said, fuck you. I'm not going to church anymore. You can't make me. So I was a rebellious teen is really what it was. And I think I was rebelling against both the church and its dogmas and the intensity of who she was. And I wanted free of that. My wife now says you were, with my marijuana stuff that was going on, she says you were just self-medicating, but I was in the thick of it. I mean, I for 5 years there, I smoked a pack a day. First thing I thought of every day was how am I getting high? How am I getting high today? Now, here's the interesting thing. In my priest group, the other part of this is I was ostracized at church by the boys. The reason for that was I had an issue with controlling my bowels all the way up till 6th grade. So I'd get sent home from school because I would do it both ways and not be able to control it. And the story I tell, and it's a neurological disorder. And the story I tell is that, or I believe, is that when I went into junior high, I knew I was going to be amongst all these different kids. So I was all excited because they didn't know me. I mean, they literally, my nickname at school was Stinky Stoddard. That's what they called me. I got picked on a lot. It's not like I didn't have friends, which I did. So my childhood wasn't completely horrible, but I think my brain just kicked in and said, you better fix this. You cannot have this happening going into junior high. And I did. Never had a problem with it since or anything. But it really ostracized me with the boys at church. And that was, I think, partially why I moved over to these stoner kids, because I showed up at junior high and, my church friends aren't my friends. So I want friends. And so there's a bunch of dudes hanging out in the corner of the baseball field. Well, what are they doing over there? There I go. And so that's what started that, kind of that whole experience for me. And at the time, too, the other part of this is as that evolved, as I went to 15, 16, 17, and continued to party, I would see all my friends in the priest quorum I grew up with at these parties. And I can remember telling my mom, I said, look, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. That's kind of funny. I would think that way. But I'm like, Mom, I can be a hypocrite. I can be one of those guys that are passing the sacrament at church on Sunday. And I saw him at the party smoking pot and getting drunk just like the other weekend.
You were a Stoddard with standards. Doesn't mean you're going to live by them, but at least you're not going to be a hypocrite about it.
Yeah, that's right. And so, that's how I grew up. So how it happened is that, or how I kind of turned, was Christmas of '83. I remember going out and buying a 6-pack of beer, and I got someone to buy it for me. I just didn't want to drink it. We did all our presents and stuff on Christmas Eve, and I was like, yeah, when we're done with the presents, I'm going to go out and get me some beers, and it just didn't really feel right. So that was kind of the start of my return to Mormonism. And my dad, I just
buying a 6-pack of beer.
Yeah, I just didn't want to drink it. Yeah, and so my dad, he had been loving this whole time. So like, just to tell you how loving my dad is. So I'm sentenced to a boys camp for 6 months it's called Los Prietos Boys Camp up in the mountains of Santa Barbara. And I paid it back later. I gave them some music instruments, went and spoke to the boys in uniform and did some things like that. But my dad is driving up on a little Honda Passport, 70. He'd drive up in the mountains. He'd come see me on Saturday visits or Sunday, whatever they were. And he'd bring me a carton of cigarettes. And he's just straight up hardcore Mormon dad. He didn't care. I love my son. He wants a carton of cigarettes. I'm gonna bring him a carton of cigarettes. That's how cool my dad was. And I always felt really connected to my father. And I wanted to make him proud. And in fact, later, and I don't know if I still believe this or not, but later I told him, I said, Dad, I think I chose you in the pre-existence. Again, I don't know how true that is anymore, but that's how close I felt to him and still do. And so when I turned 19, I decided to join the Army. I'd actually taken the ASVAB test at high school stoned. And I got a GT score of 114, which qualified me for any job in the entire Army. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I go down to what they call the Met station in LA. And I sign up. I ended up going, choosing to go airborne, become a paratrooper. At the time, I had no clue what that was, other than I'm signing up. I'm on a little green Mac screen, and the guy's showing me jobs, and he picks this one radar operator job, and I go, "That's cool." And then he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, do you want to go airborne?" And I'm like, "Well," and I stopped for a second, and there was this guy down. This is upstairs. I had a little.
Oh, you're going to say, I've had a lot of experience being high.
Yeah. But there was a kid. There was a kid downstairs, and he's going nuts down there. I'm going airborne. I'm going airborne. And I'm like, so when he said that, I don't have any idea what it is, really. I just know that there's this kid down there that's hyper excited about going airborne. So I looked at him down there. I said, "Yeah, I'll do that." And then I can remember coming home and showing my certificate.
Like a testimony meeting.
Yeah, I can remember coming to my parents and showing them my certificate. "Mom, Dad, I'm going airborne, joining the Army." And so when I did all that and recognized what it was, my teenage brain goes, "Well, Mark, you're going to be jumping out of perfectly good airplanes, and you could go splat. You better have your stuff right with the man above." And so that further projected my journey back into Mormonism. And then I wanted my dad to be proud of me, because I had become inactive as a teacher. So what I did was I went to the bishop, did the old, "I'm all good now," and blah, 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 humma, humma. And so my dad didn't find out he was going to ordain me a priest until it was announced in sacrament meeting. And that was my intent. I wanted to surprise my dad, and he just loved it. He just, and to this day, it was a good experience, right? Even though what I know about it now. But so I then leave for the Army, the 82nd Airborne Division. I serve for 3 years at Fort Bragg. I go to airborne school. I get recycled there. It takes me twice as long to graduate, but I graduate. And I go in the Army. I have a great time, great mentors, great leaders, learn what it means to be a paratrooper. My parents actually come out and visit me at one point, and it's a great experience. So then I return home after my first stint in the Army, and I want to be like my dad again. He served a mission in Nova Scotia, and so from 60 to 62. Now, the thing about that's a little unnerving for me is his father passed while he was on his mission, and the church wouldn't let him go back home to his funeral, which to this day, I think it's a horrible,
disgusting.
Yes, horrible thing. So, but at the time, my dad, of course, it didn't bother him. He just, my dad always was a dutiful member of the church. And so I come home and I actually go to work for the company he's working for, Raytheon. And so I save enough money to go on my mission. My parents told me if I saved $3,000, they would help with the rest, and other members of the ward would help. So I did that, saved enough money. I got called to the Indianapolis mission, left in March of 1988, returned home in March of 90. On my mission, I served as a trainer, a district leader, a zone leader, ended as a zone leader. And like I've mentioned earlier when we were talking, on my mission, and I think this was because of my upbringing, my time in the military, I just wasn't, I didn't care about the rules. Okay, we're reading the White Handbook every day. Okay, we'll read it, companion. I was always dutiful. All right, we're going to read the handbook. All right. So we read the rules every day, blah, blah, blah. Well, my first baptism, I got crazy stories. I won't go into all of them, but they're numbered. They're that bad. I didn't number them, and my ex-wife numbered them. But the first one, number one really, is my first baptism. And it's one that I attended. I wasn't one of the missionaries that taught this person getting baptized, but this is in downtown Indianapolis. I go to the baptism. After the baptism, we go out for pizza. Well, the gal that drives us to get pizza shoves 6 of us in her car. And there's like 4 in the back, 2 in the front, and it's just and she's a single sister, but she's like one of the ward missionaries or whatever, and she wasn't really that cute or whatever. And
special spirit.
Yeah, but here's why I share the story. What's the first thing that happens? Someone starts cranking Bon Jovi. We just had this visit. We're not supposed to be listening to blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, oh, maybe this mission thing ain't bad, and we did. I just, so that was kind of my first experience in the mission field. I'm like, okay, wait a minute.
So Mark, we talked about you being a musician. Did you play guitar as a teen?
I did.
Okay.
So I started.
We kind of skipped that, but you can just say real quick what got you interested. And
so my Uncle John, while I lived in Portland, played guitar, and I went to visit him frequently, and I was just starstruck. To this day, he's a fantastic guitar player. And so when I got home, I met another kid that played guitar, and then I got even more starstruck. And then what we would do is my friends and I had a 7-Eleven store that was just literally a quarter block from my house because I lived on a corner. So literally it was just right down the street. And we would go there often and get folks to buy us beer. We'd stand on the side and wait for someone. Well, in this one case, I happened to find this one guy. His name was Rick. He lived down the street. He was 10 years my senior. And he was a phenomenal guitar player. And so he started giving me free lessons. And so he gave me a bunch of lessons. And so by the time I joined the military, I hadn't played in any bands yet, but in those 4 years, I progressed pretty quickly. And then what happened when I got in the military was that we had a bunch of soldier musicians. So, and I had
a little army band.
No, not like the formal army band
jam together.
Yes, but we'd have jams in the barracks. And so my first experience there was I was on a 3-man radar crew. And in fact, I'm friends on Facebook with both the guys that were on or one of the guys that was on this crew. And he was a guitar player and he had a band already, right? And he was looking for another guitar player, but I'm still kind of young, right? I haven't ever really played in a band, but he auditions me. Well, I don't make it, but the cook, one of the mechanics gets the job as his second guitar player. And both these guys are great guitarists already. I mean, they're playing Judas Priest and stuff. Well, we had what's called a Morale, Welfare, and Recreation building. It was called the MWR building. And they had a stage and they had music rooms. And you could walk down there, or if you had a bike or a car, drive down there. From where my barracks were, it was about 3 miles, not 3 miles, about 2 miles at the most. And you could rent the stage, or you could rent a room, you could rent a guitar, you could rent an amp, a drum set. And so I ended up going down and watching his band down there. This is after I failed my audition, right? And they're singing the song Breaking the Law by Judas Priest. And I'm not sure if you're familiar. Breaking the law, breaking the law. It goes way up high. And there's this guy standing right next to me. And he starts singing along with the singer. And he's singing better. And he's going higher. And I'm kind of like, I need to put a band together, And so I start talking to him. Turns out he was at airborne school with me. We kind of briefly talked there. And he and I are still friends to this day as well. And so what happened is this mechanic that got the job, I'm in the chow hall, and he looks at me and he goes, Mark, quit crying in your oats here. Go form your own band. There's Danny that plays drums. There's Bill plays bass. And so that's what I did when I put together my own band in the Army, and we started going out and gigging in Fayetteville. Wow. And for a while there were 2 bands, all made up of soldiers in the barracks, and we were out in Fayetteville performing classic rock stuff.
Oh, cool. And so that's sort of the tie-in to Judas Priest that was playing at, was it on your way to the baptism or on the way to get pizza?
No. Well, yeah, it was after the baptism.
And
that's
what I was saying. Was there more to the story than that?
Well, yes.
Or is that just sort of the end of it, where you get to hear Judas Priest?
So the story there is that singer joined the band. We put together a great band, and then the 2 bands that were out there playing eventually, when I got out, morphed into one band, and they continued to play even after I got out, and were able to play some of the more prominent clubs. And so music really played a key role in my time in the military. It played a role on my mission. When I left on my mission, I thought, well, okay, you got to be super spiritual, dude. got to give up your guitar. I'm going to sell my surfboard. I'm going to sacrifice all my stuff. You know,
You got to prove yourself to the Lord.
Exactly. Well, here's what happened. In my very first interview with the mission president, and it came out almost uncontrollably. It was kind of weird. I go, hey, can I have a guitar? He goes, sure. I'm like, great. And at the time, missions were different. We were in a very financially advantageous area. We paid $50 a month rent to a member and lived up above in an apartment in his old house with an outside stairwell that went up. And so, you know, and at the time, the church is not giving you your money. You're getting your money direct from home. And so I was able to buy a guitar, a very cheap acoustic guitar for, I think, $150 or something like that. And I took that guitar everywhere I went on my mission. I later recorded in a studio on my mission with an investigator. I later even got my electric guitar sent out, and I had a lamp, and I did some. So I'll do a real short, funny story. The sisters in my one area up in LaPorte, Indiana, they're just harassing us. And I looked at my companion. I go, we're going to get them. We're going to prank them. They're not going to, we're just going to get them good. So
it's going to be a Mormon style of a panty
what
raid.
happened was we would borrow their car, right? And they got upset that we would borrow it too much, and they complained to the president about it. And I get a call from the mission president's wife, Elder Stoddard, will you leave the sisters alone about their car? Okay, Sister Lamb. So after that, I was like, looked at my companion, look, we're going to get them. And so the next time we borrowed the car, they gave us their full set of keys. And I looked at my companion. I go, you know where we're going? And he goes, we're going to a key shop. We're going to get copies of every single key made. And then the plot started, right? How and what are we going to do? So what we did was they were away on a P day. And then we went into their apartment. We short sheeted all their sheets. We put glitter in their beds. We put cellophane on the toilet. We put Book of Mormons in the refrigerator and a note on the refrigerator that said "Feast on the Word of Christ." We created a fake elder dude out of a thrifter suit, and we stuffed it with newspaper and we hung ties from the ceiling. And then the reason I bring this up is with the guitar. So I had my guitar and had this little mini amp thing. And so I recorded this crazy ass riffing message on the answering machine. And it was like, you know, we're not here because we're not working, you know, I had put something funny on there. And so, yeah, I share all this with you because I've been blessed in terms of being able to learn guitar, focus on guitar. And it's been just a real blessing in my life throughout my mission, throughout my military career. I've entertained soldiers at multiple posts. While I was stationed in Korea, I put a band together that got hired by the Morale, Welfare, Recreation Department. I came home with $2,500 extra in my pocket because I was playing.
Oh, wow.
I led that band. I negotiated it. I put the whole thing together. I was the lead singer. I was the lead guitarist. I did all that. When I joined the Army the second time and came on active duty in 95, I was an infantry officer. So I had to go to infantry school, the infantry officer basic course, what they call it. Then I went to Ranger school, which I didn't complete, unfortunately. I got recycled twice. But on my way to Ranger school, I got hurt on a range. I had a grade 3 ankle sprain. And there was a band that was playing there, a soldier band, that happened to be playing this club that we went to for a school event. We had a school dinner, and downstairs was this rock band. So when we had a break, I walked down there. I'm like, hey man, I'm a guitar player, and introduced myself. Well, they ended up hiring me, and in 1995, we played in what's called the All Army Battle of the Bands. And I don't know if they still do this or not, but they did it for many, many years. And my little claim to fame is I was voted best guitarist at the Battle of the Bands, and I have a little statue that hangs on my shelf here. So the bottom line with all this is music has been a real integral part of who I am as a person. It helped on my mission. I had a story one time. My trainer it came from being his own leader, and he was going home. He was type A like me. He hated me. Just hated, literally, he hated me. And it was because I could teach as good as he could within hours. I mean, I was just naturally could do it, right? I'd been around a little bit longer. And he resented that. And he would purposely go out and try to create problems. And so one day we were out tracting, and I put a kibosh on it, and he didn't like it. So a lady basically went back in to get her Bible, right? Because he starts bashing with her. She goes, well, let me go back, get my Bible. I'll come back out. So as soon as she came back out, I just looked at her dead in the face and I go, ma'am, we believe in Jesus Christ just like you do. Have a good day. And I turned around and walked away. And he had to follow me. He had no choice. Went to the next door. Lady comes to the door. He goes, I'll let my inspired companion tell you who we are. And so,
oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. So I hammered him right there on the spot. We came on the street, I hammered him, right? I started going out. A military guy comes at me, who do you think you are? And I go, and I'm still kind of the spiritual dude, right? So I'm like, we're not one, so I'm not going to another door with you. And we didn't. We went home.
It's like you're the junior.
When you say you hammered him,
yeah. So we weren't.
What do you mean by hammered him?
I basically, got on him. I just, in the military we call it hammering someone. I just verbally
shoot him out.
Yeah, verbally chewed him out and said, you shouldn't be using potential investigators as pawns. That's not cool. And I was loud and he was loud. We fought, verbally fought. Right. Well, we were dumb enough the next day to go back to the same street, opposite side of the street. So we knock on this door. And I'm standing, so the door opens inward, and I'm standing where I can see in, and he's standing to my left. And this guy answers the door, and he looks at me, and he goes, yeah, I saw you two guys out here yesterday fighting. Some Christian. No. Oh, yeah. He goes, some Christians you guys are. I ought to go get my gun right now. And I'm standing there. Oh, yeah. It's a true story. And I'm freaking out, but I'm not letting it show. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do here? Well, again, his door is open inward and I can see down his hallway. And what do I see? A guitar. It's all over.
Oh.
All over at that point. Hey man, is that your guitar? What kind is it? Well, awesome. I play guitar. No kidding. Played guitar on his porch for about 45 minutes. His name was Floyd. Still remember it to this day. Never went back. Who cares? But my
Pink Floyd.
Yeah. but yeah, it just saved the day. And at the end of the day, that's the beautiful thing about music. Music is able to
soothe the soul of a savage beast, right?
Yeah. So
music is a universal language.
Yes.
And love is the key.
Right. So I came home from my mission, almost married a girl, an investigator I baptized on my mission. That's another crazy story. She came out with her kids. I almost married her. Again, got a feeling like, don't do this. My mom was like dead against it. She was absolutely right. Ended up sending her back. The same guy I rented my first apartment from in Indianapolis, she was living in that apartment at that point with her two kids. So he came out and got her and brought her back. No, he came out and got all her stuff, and she took the train back. That was 1990, I think. So that was a huge almost mistake. I'm going to go quickly now. So I got accepted at the University of Utah in 1990. So I went there. I had money from the Army to go to school. It was called the BEAT program. So I went to school year round, taking breaks and coming home to Toledo and Santa Barbara. I drive. I got a degree.
Were you being an engineer?
I didn't know what I wanted to be initially, but I ended up becoming a mass communication major with a public relations emphasis. I was a business management major, but I made the really stupid college student mistake of taking micro and macro economics along with algebra 101 in the same quarter. And I died a hard death. That was
masochistic.
Oh my God. And here's what happened. I knew my GPA was going to drop. So I went over to the School of Communication and got accepted before my GPA dropped and would have prevented me from getting in. So I ended up graduating with a GPA of 3.2, which is okay. I mean, the one quarter that I did not play in a band, I did get a 3.96. So,
Oh, wow.
so that was a little bit. But I played in college the whole time. I played in bands the whole time I was in college to pay for college. I was in the 19th Special Forces group. And so those weekend drills would pay for college. After I graduated, I went to what's called the ROTC Advanced Camp. Then I had to
That's
wait.
right, because you're going to college on the GI Bill.
It was called the VEAP then. It was called the
VEAP.
Veterans Education Assistance Program. And it was $20,000 for college. I got, I think.
Because you're still in the service, but you get to go.
So the way that works is that you don't have to be in the service to receive the educational benefit. But on my mission, I was smart, and I became eligible to reenlist in the Army. So on my mission, I reenlisted, and so I went down to a National Guard station and I reenlisted in what's called the IRR, or Individual Ready Reserve. It's just being a paper soldier. So once I enlisted on the delayed entry program in December of '83 to when I retired in 2011, I don't have any break in service. And so I was smart enough to do that, and it really helped me out. And so once I graduated college, I went to this camp. I got commissioned. My parents came up. It was up in Tacoma, Washington. My parents are from Portland, Oregon, so they grew up in that whole area. I still have an aunt and an uncle up there. And so they came up, we did that. And then afterwards, I didn't want to live with them. So my sister was living in Texas. She says, Mark, come down and live with me. So I said, great, I'll go down and join a band there, 3-piece. We were playing all over Houston. And
I'm betting they have girls in Texas.
They do. And that's where I met my ex-wife. So
in the whole state or just certain cities?
Yeah, that's my yeah. So that's where I met my ex-wife. Was there at Institute or in the student ward, as they called it.
In what town?
In Houston.
Okay.
And then I would play all over Houston, and I was waiting. What happens is when you go through any type of officer program, and the Army is going to hire you as an officer. They have what's called the accessions process, where they assess you and they determine, well, we're going to make this guy go this way or this gal go this way. And you have a wish list of the branches. The Army has multiple branches you can serve in as an officer. While I was at the advanced camp, I was walking around with this machine gun that I used to operate, and I decided to change my first choice to infantry. And I did well enough at the camp. Then when I got back, before getting back, I called my school. I said, change my wish list, put infantry first. I got my first choice of regular Army infantry. So I'm just absolutely overjoyed. I know that I'm pretty much going to retire once you get regular Army.
And what's your rank? You have your college degree at that time?
Yeah, at the time, my rank is a second lieutenant. So I ended up retiring as a major. I could have stayed longer and retired as a lieutenant colonel, but I had a successful business, and there was no point in doing that.
So you're doing the military and the Mormon thing all at once. You get
all
married.
Right. So I'm still hyperactive at this time, and so
I mean, was your goal to have like 12 kids and be a good Mormon and make it to the celestial kingdom that way?
Kind of not 12, but here's the funny thing, and it's crazy to think about this, and that I did this with my ex-wife. I did two things with her, and I think one of them almost scared her the fuck off, and I think eventually led to her divorcing me. But I did share with her one time, and I got this from my mission, my wife checklist, which is just so stupid. but then I
kind of want to know some items. I want to know a few items that you had on.
Yeah, just to give us a couple of the checklist.
God,
she had to have already read the Book of Mormon 10 times.
Yeah, she had a testimony of the Book of Mormon. She had good parents. I mean, I just had a whole stupid list. But then the second thing
kids
was juxtaposed to that, and that was I had to take her to a bar. I had to go. This is part of who I am. I'm going to play
Just be a
ball.
good Mormon, but not too good.
Yeah, that's who I am, and you need to
A
know.
virtuous nymphomaniac, if you will.
Oh yeah, and here's what's funny about that, right? So years later, when I'm playing in this blues band in Fayetteville in the Army, and I'm married to her, the Post newspaper does an article on our band and features us on the front page. And she's looking at me, and this look on her face is just like, it's like she did not enjoy any of this. She was a very and still is.
Said too much in the article.
No. I think she always resented the fact that I would go out and play, and that was part of who I am. I mean, for a long time, I couldn't even go out to jams because she'd freak out about it. At the end of the day, that was just not a good thing for her, so, but it's who I am. It's part of who I am. My current wife loves it. She's gone to lots of gigs with me and out playing, and she's so supportive.
Yeah, and so I was thinking that you could say just a little bit about the lead up to the divorce, and I know you had some problems there. Let's just do a little bit of that. But if there's any stories about your business and your inventions tied into those things.
I go to Houston, live with my sister, meet my ex-wife. I end up proposing to her, and then I get assessed. I have to report back to the University of Utah on January 17th, 1995. My first job is to be a recruiter at the school, and that's for 4 months. And then I go off to Fort Benning for the infantry officer basic course in Ranger School, and then I'm going back to Fort Bragg and back to the 82nd Airborne Division, which I'd already served in. So it was like coming back to home for me. And so we both go back there, and I start playing in bands. At one point, the drummer quits. I'm left with a PA system that I convinced her that I could put on a credit card. Now I got to pay for it. So I start going out, kind of like what Randy talked about. I start going out and doing solo gigs, getting acoustic. I'm not the best singer in the world, but I'm like, you know what? I've got to make some money to pay this thing off. And so I do all that. This whole time, though, my ex-wife is really not supportive at all. And so back in 2004, I move into a special forces battalion. I'm a supply officer. So I'm responsible for ensuring that battalion in combat has everything they need to kill the bad guys: food, fuel, ammunition, medical, all of it. It's my job.
You were like radar on maps.
Yeah, and radar with 30 guys working for him. So parachute riggers work for me, mechanics work for me, truck drivers work for me, and I had a first sergeant and a senior NCO and a warrant that worked for me, a warrant officer that worked for me as well. So how the entrepreneur thing started is prior to leaving for combat, I saw this real expensive guitar cable, and I wondered why it was so expensive. I ended up making me a guitar cable, and when I made that guitar cable and played through it in my garage, I recognized it, and I hadn't recognized this for ever up to that point, that guitar cables can make me sound better. So I'm like, wow, I can make some money off this.
Really?
And at the time, I just started into skydiving, and I'm like, I want to buy a parachute, and maybe I can make enough extra side money on this. I'll buy a parachute, right? Then I deploy. Well, I'd ordered my first roll of cable and ends right prior to deploying. Another member of the ward, he was in my unit, and he was deploying on a following mission, on a following flight. So I said, hey man, can you go by my house and get that roll of cable and bring it in? And I'd already ordered my packaging. So my ex-wife sent my packaging over. So my first guitar cables were made and sold in combat.
And what year was that about?
That was 2004, from June to December 2004. So we started a jam in Kandahar, and I led that jam after a while. And we special forces guys, that's how we are. We kind of took it over. I'm not special forces qualified or anything. I was a logistician supporting special forces and certain special forces units for most of my career.
Mark, why did you want to buy your own parachute?
Oh, I just love skydiving. I started skydiving, and it was just a blast. I'm like, like
the temple, when you go skydiving, you have to rent a parachute, but if you buy your own, you could save some money.
Yes.
And you can also use certain parts of the parachute as the robes in the temple.
Yeah, yeah. So that the name of that business was called Lava Cable, and I ended up giving cables to MWR there, selling a couple to fellow soldiers. I also contacted numerous music industry companies while I was deployed and got them to donate some guitars, drums, and it got flown into theater. We got it. It was really kind of cool. And so that was, again, music playing a huge role in a tough situation. And we had a lot of soldiers that would get up and jam. It's just, it's how you, relax and have a good time and try camaraderie and all that kind of stuff. And so I came home, and I'll speed up here. Went into what's called simulations, and I got this real sexy email, and I thought, well, if I do this, I probably won't deploy again. I really don't want to deploy again. I didn't want to be away from my family. So my daughter, Sarah, was born in 2000 while I was deployed in Korea. And in fact, I got called from the delivery room and heard the birth via phone, which is crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. One of my ex-wife's friends was there in the room with her, and she called me, and I heard the birth, which was pretty awesome.
That's the first time in my life I've ever heard of anyone saying, I heard the birth of my child.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And I watched
the
other two. I was there in the room for the other two, but yeah. And it was just, so when you go to Korea, you get 30 days of leave. And I tried to plot it around when the due date was, and it just didn't quite work. She was the first one, and she, like a lot of the first ones, she came early. So, I got, obviously came home from Korea, and then now I'm deployed to combat. I come home, do the simulations thing, and I just continue to grow this little guitar cable business. And by the time I retired in 2011, it's going like gangbusters. I built a little shop out in my backyard. I hired, this is a funny story too. I hired my babysitter to solder. And I had, when I retired from the Army, I had 3 girls, LDS girls, soldering cables for me in my backyard.
Wow, Mark's Angels.
Yeah. And I was soldering them too. So the business did real well. I retired to Owasso, Oklahoma, just north of Tulsa, specifically to put my ex-wife next to her father. Now, what I know now is that I was lured there. I would have stayed. I liked the little thing I had going. But what I believe happened now is my ex-wife told her father that she's having difficulty with me. And I think
is that tied to you, like, starting to lose a testimony at all?
No, at this point, no.
Not yet?
Not yet. No, in 2011, I hadn't really lost my testimony or anything. I was just a little intense as an Army guy. And sometimes I've never, ever, ever laid hands on a woman, and never will. That's just, my mother taught me better. I'm not just ever, ever, ever. And there was no fights that were really that extreme either. Now, there was a few times I raised my voice and got kind of in the Army mode, intense guy. And I think she took issue with that. So there was a couple of there was a couple of intense moments, but nothing you couldn't work out, right? But what I think happened now is that she told her father, and he said, well, this is what I'm guessing. Can't confirm for sure anything, but my best guess here is he told her, well, you just get out here. You just get out here, and if something happens, we'll take care of you. And sure enough, he did. I mean, he bought the house she lives in now. She lives a mile away from me. So at the end of it, that's what he did. But so what happened was that I get back, and the business is going strong, and she and I have some issues. I come in and kind of vent with her, and she basically starts saying some crazy stuff, and pretty bad stuff like I can't wait to see you before the judgment bar of Christ, and just saying bad, stuff that's purposely hurtful.
And you said, well, as long as it's a bar.
Yeah. So at the time, again, I haven't quite, but she filed for divorce on Valentine's Day of 2014. And it was a complete surprise. Literally 2 days after we had this little spat, But the way it happened, I'm like, oh my God, she had this.
I mean, do you think she could have done it on the 13th, but she waited to the 14th just to be on Valentine's Day as a little dig?
Maybe, I don't know. She had everything in the works, though. I think we had gone on a family trip when her brother got married, and we were having some problems then, and she set me up, is what I completely believe to this day. Her and her father just set me up, and that's the other issue I have with the church. Okay, in a case where what he should have said was to his daughter, I have no business here. The only thing I will tell you as a priesthood holder, you need to work it out. He didn't do that. He did just the opposite. And the crazy thing about it was, she was what I discovered, and this was freaking nuts as I, got served divorce papers and started looking at stuff. She was buying and reading XXX porn books. Like,
who reads XXX porn books? I just look at the pictures.
Like 300 of them, 320, spending our money.
Wow.
Oh, so yeah. That's that.
And I found them all because she downloaded them on her Kindle.
First of all, we're going to do an hour show on each of those porn books. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. And so the interesting thing is, it's the dichotomy of she is breaking some rules, and she's sort of blaming you now to break rules, which is kind of a human condition.
Yeah.
The things I hate about Randy the most are when he's most like me. Right? I mean, it's sort of like, we could see flaws when we're doing flaws, right?
Yeah.
And so those are sad things, and we could talk more about that, in another show. But let's get to how you recognize things about the church, and then your happily ever after story.
I'm sitting in church. It's shortly before the divorce was filed, and I just get some feelings. I'm a very sensitive person, and I just go, something's not right here. Something's not right, and I don't feel comfortable anymore. And so I was sitting there in sacrament meeting, and I was reading in the standard works or something else I had with me, and I discovered that Joseph Smith essentially died in a shootout. And so, like I shared earlier, I couldn't reconcile that with what a New Testament prophet or apostle would be. There's no precedent for it. So my brain, again, I'm thinking theologically. I'm like, okay, is Joseph Smith behaving like a New Testament apostle? And no.
Because we hear he went like a lamb to the slaughter, and you're thinking, yeah, fully armed.
Yes.
Lamb.
And it was crazy. So that's kind of the second thing that happened, and that reinforces this feeling like something's not quite right here. And so I just know that I need to. That's it. This church is full of garbage, and I just need to bail. And then. One of the things that I don't know whether we were still together or not at the time, but I took all my garments off and threw them at my ex-wife. That didn't make her happy. I didn't care, and so that's what caused me. And so from that point on, that's probably 2014-ish, 2013, late 2013, when all that kind of happened. And then it was kind of a smooth transition. There was it wasn't, it's not like, oh, my shelf broke and I'm all emotional. No, it was okay. I'm just getting rid of this weight. And that's what happened. And I'm sure you've heard this a lot. When I left, resigned, did all that weight just went away. It was just a sense of just, oh my word. And like I shared earlier with my mother, who had been excommunicated in the 80s, rebaptized, and then resigned in 1995, she always told me, Mark, when are you going to take your power back? And
freedom.
Yes, freedom. And when I resigned, I'm like, oh, that's what my mother was saying to me this whole time. I'm stubborn. And I am. My mother always, Mark, you're stubborn, and I am, but I'm grateful now that I've recognized all this. I'm grateful for the stuff that you guys are doing. And I think each of our stories are important. And we all ex-Mormons in this community bring something to the table. And at the end of the day, it's important to understand what the church really is, what it's done, the impact, and to ensure others are aware of what happens here and what's happened to us. I mean, like I shared with you earlier, I'm estranged from all of my children because of the church. It's horrible. I'm I say this, but I'm not really, but I am angry about it. That's not right. I should have a healthy relationship with all my children, but the Mormon ideology and theology is so invasive, because I was in it. And just to wrap this up too quickly, I know we're really quickly running out of time. I've been a veil worker in the Salt Lake Temple. I was called to be an institute instructor. I've been a high priest group leader twice. I've been an elders quorum president twice. I've been counselors in both the elders quorum presidency and high group presidency multiple times. I was the gospel doctrine teacher so many times I lost count. I was always being asked to be the gospel doctrine teacher, and people and the members loved me. Mark, best lesson I ever heard. So I was hooked. I mean, I was like, this is it. So to know that Joseph Smith just simply made all this up, it's pretty disconcerting. I mean, and it, and at the end of the day, I mean, it's time that the church get called out more and stop misleading people, because that's what they're still doing. And that's not right.
Yeah, and for a church that claims the families can be together forever, they do their darndest to break up families and give hard feelings. And so we appreciate you coming on. Yep. I'll just end real quickly, and we'll have you back. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and do the things. And have a great rest of 2025.
Thank you, Mark, for coming.
Thank you, guys. You guys are doing yeoman's work, and it's much appreciated.